Chapter 3, The Old Man. 2 years earlier, before moving to Las Vegas, we see Sherilyn talking with her hypnotherapist. Her therapist talked about her life and how she had become a blur of her life that she's now living, as if she was reliving it every minute, moment by moment, all over again. Okay, my therapist says, let's start where we left off reading my notes. We see a young Sherilyn, teen girl, at the age of 14. She ran away to Colorado with some bikers because she thought her parents were too strict. Her stepfather was abusive, and she wanted to be a free spirit. Okay, you had asthma as a child. It was winter, and the Colorado winter temperatures are sometimes below 30 degrees. You took ill with asthma, which forced you to come home after being away for a week. Your stepfather picked you up from the bus station and then struck you for running away. This time he gave you a black eye and put you in a juvenile detention center for an extra week. It was 2 weeks until you saw your mother, a woman who came of age in the 1950s that was in the era of don't spare the rod and spoil the child, a passive woman who never stood up for herself, and she lived in fear of her controlling husband. Yes, Sherilyn interjects. Fear was always in her way. Do you feel your mother-daughter relationship would have been closer if Mom would have stood up for herself? Her therapist asked. I was sorry for what I put my parents through after spending a week in juvenile detention. Let me explain. It was a gorgeous summer morning. The sky was like a turquoise blue, and a pinkish peach was behind the mountains, hinting that the sunrise was ready to leave. On this day, my friend Dana and I, both about 16, missed the school bus, and so we started walking to school. A man pulled over with his girlfriend, or maybe it was his wife, in the car, and said, "Do you want to ride? You girls look tired." My friend Dana and I were tired, and the hot Arizona sun was starting to come out. Then I said to Dana, "They look safe. What do you think?" Dana said, "Sure, why not?" So we got in the car. It didn't feel right, Sherilyn revealed, but he did drop us off at school. The guy gave Dana his phone number and said he had a jet boat. "Do we want to party this weekend at the lake?" he asked. We were excited. We had never been on a boat, let alone a jet-powered one. So after school, we decided to call him. Sherilyn exclaimed, excited. We called him the Old Man, an old biker term. He was older, but we didn't know how much older. Actually, we found out later he was almost 20 years older, as old as my stepfather. He lied to me. We were two young teenage girls looking for adventure that weekend. Dana and I snuck down to the lake for the first time. We were both deprived of funds, and this was the 1970s. After a long day of partying and skiing at the lake, the Old Man and his friends gave us some quaaludes, 2 each to be exact. We had never taken prescription drugs before, so we didn't really know what effect they would have on us. Yes, we had tried marijuana, but this was different. I was knocked out and I couldn't even move. Your body feels like rubber. Of course, this deceptive, perverted old man took advantage of both Dana and I. And upon awakening, I remembered what my parents said. Run away again and you're out of the house for good. So I called my mom the next morning and told her I fell asleep. Of course, she didn't believe me. I was afraid to tell the truth for fear of being hit again. One more time and you're out, bellowed in my head. Then she said, you and your friend aren't allowed back here anymore. Come and get your clothes. They'll be out on the front porch, she commanded, practicing tough love. Alone at 16, I knew I couldn't stay at Dana's home. Much of the time, Dana was already staying at my house because her parents couldn't handle her either. So I heard about predators, but I didn't know much about them. It was times like this that I really miss my grandfather. What did you do? Her therapist interjected. What could I do? Sherilyn answered abruptly. I thought I was trapped in this toxic relationship. The old man started bringing more young girls home with him to party. They were given quaaludes too, and he was dealing drugs like cocaine, quaaludes, and marijuana. And then we started having orgies. This was perfect for the old man. He had all these young girls, invited his friends to join in too. While Dana and I were cleaning the house, we felt like his slaves. Oh my God. What I thought was freedom from my strict parents her therapist finishes with her sentence, turned into a conquest from the devil. Yes, somehow I fell right into his lair. And then one day I woke up vomiting. Oh my God, I couldn't keep any food down. My friends told me I might be pregnant. Then that's when I screamed, fuck, silently to myself. I cried myself to sleep that night. The therapist interjects, go on. Later that week, I found the old man with my best friend Dana. I bet you had feelings of betrayal, the therapist commented. You think? I told that bitch to leave and never come back. Then Dana returned to her parents. I never saw her again after that. What about your mom? Have you talked to her in the meantime? The therapist interjected again. I had not talked with my mom for months. But I had to call her. I had to tell her I wanted to marry this guy. I was pregnant. But I was under the age of 18, so my parents needed to sign documents to give me the rights to become an underage bride. I was rebellious and hard-headed and still angry with my mother for kicking me out of the house when I was 16. So my mother signed the papers and I married the old man. You must have felt a little more secure, the therapist interjects. Ha! Sherilyn laughs. On our honeymoon, we went to Vail, Colorado, and we rented a couple cabins with the maid of honor and her friend Danny. I was about 3 months pregnant. After the long trip, I decided to take a shower. I took a shower and left the water running, and I walked out to find my new husband making out with the maid of honor. He gave her quaaludes, of course. I quit taking the drugs when I discovered I was pregnant. The old man and the maid of honor were mad as hell that they were caught. The honeymoon was over, the therapist interjected. Yes, but I knew what he was when I married him. I felt trapped. I started growing more cynical and decided to go out with his younger friends. He didn't know. The old man slept with different women all the time. I accepted it because I had a roof over my head. I had to. Then I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy, Dallas. Now I had an infant son to care for, along with cleaning the house. I grew used to the sex and started feeling closer to the old man. He was a construction worker and a drug dealer, and I made him lunch at 4 o'clock in the morning and drove him to and from work. We only had one car at the time. Then he bought a car for me, an old 1959 Cadillac. I was 17, and it was the late 70s, and I quit school and I got a job at the Hansel and Gretel daycare down the street. One day at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, a car rear-ended me going 65 miles an hour. The 1959 Cadillac was a heavy car. I was at a dead stop and the wheel was turned to make a left turn into the parking lot. Then this drunk driver hit the Cadillac from behind, going 65 miles an hour. And it shot forward, and there was a bar under the seat that moved the seat backward and forward, And upon impact, the seat slid all the way back, then all the way front, and then all the way back again, about 2 feet, and stuck there. I'm petite, and I couldn't reach the brakes, so the car sailed right through the daycare building. Bricks came flying through the front windshield and hit me in the head. Most of the time, the children stood in front of the door waiting for their parents to pick them up. 5 minutes before my car hit the door, the children were moved to the backyard to play. Thank God I could not have lived with myself if I had hurt or killed any of those kids. I believe it was divine intervention. My son, then 9 months old, Dallas, was strapped in the car seat, but the seat belt came undone. Still strapped into the infant car seat, he flew up in the air over the seats and landed upside down on the back seat floorboards. Everything happened as if in slow motion. The car entered the building, glass shattered, bricks flew through the windshield, and my arm and my collarbones were broken. I was also left with intense whiplash, but all I could think about was my baby. As soon as the crash stopped, I jumped over the car seat, picking up the infant seat with the pure adrenaline force, not knowing my wrist was broken. Blood was coming from Dallas's nose. God, please let him be okay, I cried. Then the old man was driving home from work, and he saw my car lodge into the wall of the nursery school. Paramedics arrived on the scene, and despite all the commotion, I felt afraid of the old man. I thought he would be angry with me because I wrecked his car. Luckily, I escaped with few injuries. Dallas checked out fine with only a little bloody nose, and it was as if the angels held him in place when he flipped over the car seat as the seat went backwards. A personal injury lawsuit was filed, and I received a check for $75,000. The old man brought property with it, and I put a little bit of the money away every day. I knew the marriage would not last much longer. I was growing stronger as a young woman, and I was maturing, I guess. The old man and I had another beautiful boy named Dylan. I could feel I was changing. The cruel words he said daily, like, "You're not good enough, you're not good looking, you'll never do anything in your life," started to dissipate. The old man got into real estate and started buying properties. I was taking care of my sons. Life was almost good. The therapist interjects, "It seems like you're growing to love the old man." it was an illusion. The illusion of the good life was destroyed one night when I went out with my friends from high school. I came home late. I'll admit I drank a little too much. I walked in the house, the lights were out, and the old man was sitting in his lazy boy in the dark. He scared the shit out of me. He yelled in the dark, "Where the hell have you been?" I felt washed over with the same fear I felt when my stepdad yelled at me before hitting me. That evening, the old man watched the children for the first time ever, and 3-month-old Dylan cried for 3 hours straight, he says. No cell phones back then, so he couldn't contact me. Suddenly, he got up from the lazy boy and slapped me across the face. I ran into the kid's bedroom crying. He ran in after me, shouting, "You bitch, I'm not paying for everything, so you can go slutting around with your friends." He slapped me over and over again. Finally, I grabbed the baby and ran into the bathroom, locking the door. "You're an asshole," I screamed through the door. "I have no idea what you're talking about. We just drank a few beers." "I think it's time to leave," I told him. I really needed a break. He hit me before, but it was back when I was on Quaaludes, and I didn't feel much. I quit taking drugs a while ago. Over time, my head was becoming clearer. I had a secret bank account. The statements were being mailed to my mom's house. My mom and I had a better relationship now. I missed her, especially at times like this. I was almost 20 years old now. I figured it was time to do what I wanted to do finally. I don't have to stay tied to this old man the rest of my life and be controlled by him. Why was I so stupid? I need to take control. Dallas was sleeping, so I thought I could climb through the bathroom window, and I am only 5 feet tall, and I weighed like 85 pounds. I maneuvered myself through the window with my 3-month-old baby Dylan, running and then walking and then hiding all the way to my mom's house. My mom lived a couple miles away. This time, she helped me get away and was somewhat sympathetic to my situation. "You must have been terrified," the therapist interjected. I divorced him that summer and got half of everything, which really made him mad, of course. He was determined to ruin my life. I told him I didn't want anything, but the attorney said, "You deserve half of everything," so I took it. I had realized I have made a big mistake. Maybe I could have just went to foster care. But I love my sons. They were the best things that ever happened to me. Wide-eyed, the therapist replied, "Wow. I don't hate the old man, or my stepfather, or mother. I thank them for the life lessons. That's what I needed to learn at the time, and grow up to become the person I am today." Her therapist looked at her watch. "Well, time's up for today." I leave, and I thank the therapist. As the therapist stays sitting there at her desk, speaking into her microphone, dictating the session results. The old man wanted her to pay for her mistakes. Her therapist rambles on. When the boys were about 6 and 8 years old, he refused to pay child support, and he quit working. He sued her for custody of Dallas and Dylan, and he won. He had more money to fight her and an attorney. While working at the real estate office as a receptionist, Sherilyn could no longer afford an attorney. The job did not pay much. She got visitation rights on the weekends and holidays. She missed her children and cried herself to sleep every night. Sherilyn saved enough of her money to buy a Macintosh computer
and she went to graphic design school. She started working from home. She did typesetting for different print shops. She also learned a program called Photoshop and started teaching others how to design brochures at Alpha Graphics. Sherilyn's future is starting to look brighter, and I'm hoping she will find happiness one day. Sherilyn says she has learned to face her demons through all of her life lessons. First and foremost, she must learn to always trust her feelings, and there are no coincidences. If you watch, you can see the synchronicity all around you.